Hi guys, well I just thought I'd do a little blog on the Maver Mega Match this final. I hadn't qualified this year. I'd had quite an interesting qualifying campaign, to be honest. It's really strange on the big matches. You've got to remember, only the winner goes through. And I think I genuinely feel that I never had a chance of winning one of the qualifiers. I think I fished about 4 or 5. If you want a really serious go at qualifying, you really need to fish at least half the matches. Then you're probably likely to get a chance or two. I didn't get a chance this year. I enjoyed some good fishing. I think I had £100 3 times out of 5 matches. So you can't moan at that. That's good fishing. That's why I like going on them. Because they're well pegged on good venues, it means you get good fishing and a chance to qualify for what, no doubt in my mind, is the biggest individual match in the country. You can't argue with the fact that they give £70,000 to the winner. That is simply phenomenal. I know Fishermania is great, and I absolutely do love Fishermania, but I love what Match This is all about. Some things I love about Match This: one, you can just buy your own tickets, first come, first served, no arguing. Once you bought a ticket, if you want to sell that ticket to somebody else, then that's up to you, because you go in, you buy the ticket, and you go from there. I think that's the best way to do it, without a doubt, but that's just my opinion. Works really well. That means at the start of the year, get my calendar, see which ones I want, go on, buy the tickets I want, and then I'm fishing. If I can't make one, I'll sell it. I think I bought 7 or 8 last year, couldn't make them, and I just sold them to somebody else. I think that's a really nice strategy that they've got going on there. The final itself was moved from Larford. I do like Larford, but I never felt it was right for the final, if I'm being perfectly honest. I felt that time of year it never sort of really responded, and I don't think anyone can argue with the fact that the weights weren't that high there. So I felt that it wasn't an exciting prospect of a final like somewhere else maybe. Then I heard they were moving it to Hayfield Lakes. Now, my first initial reaction, I'm not going to lie, even though Hayfield's down the road and it's fantastically beautiful, I thought, I don't know if that'll be the best place. I thought, with the Glebe being so popular, they might approach somewhere like the Glebe. Well, I was wrong. Yesterday I witnessed, in my opinion, the best ever big money final in the UK. I think Hayfield was fantastic. It looked fantastic. The fishing was fantastic. The maintenance they'd done to make it perfect for the final was fantastic. They were an absolute credit to Match Fishing, in my opinion. So well done to everybody at Hayfield. I was really, really impressed. Let's talk about the final itself. I went on Wednesday for a go on the practice match because my good friend Matt Godfrey, I say good friend, he's probably slating me on his Bagging Bro blogs or something like that at the moment, you know, taking the mick out of me with Tom. But anyway, no, he's good, very, very good friend, an exceptional angler, qualified for the final, asked me to give him a bit of a hand by going and fishing the matches, seeing what I thought. So I went on Wednesday and I fished the match, and it was really good. I had £128. Apart from the MPEG, which paralysed the match of £260, which they put blockers on the day, brilliant again from them, organising it like that. So that took away the prospect of what could be a ridiculous weight off the MPEG. £261, I think John Ashwell had that, so really, really good. But I felt then it was mega close. £158 was second. That was off a bit of space as well, where a peg hadn't been drawn. And then 135, 133, all on the other bank. On our bank, which was the island bank, I had 128. There was 123, 122, 110, 105, 109. It was incredible. All the finalists were, or a lot of the finalists who were in contention were there. Des, Winnie, Simon Skelton, Matt, Adam Richards, they were all on my bank. It was really, really tight. I had £128, like I said. It managed to sneak a section behind that £260 because he got in. So it's quite nice. I had no pressure. I could see the finalists were probably experimenting a little bit to try different methods. I caught some fish on a method feeder. Really interesting. It's a big chuck. You want to be geared up for it. So I was ready and enjoyed my day's fishing on permanent peg 45. So I felt like it was going to be a good you know, a good final. I was excited. I thought, well, £150 might win this match, and £100 will be 12th halfway. That for me is a stunning final. On the day of the final, had a look at where people had drawn. Matt, who was with me, had drawn permanent peg 7, which was draw 3 on the day. I want to talk a little bit about permanent pegs, because if you ever go to Hayfield, you can then reference the permanent pegs. It looked good. The wind was blowing that way. It's on a bit of a point. I didn't think it was going to be stunning. I felt that if there was fish on a short pole in the area, he was on the best peg. If they weren't down that end of the lake, I feared for him, because you're not in with the main island pegs, and in a couple of previous matches that would have been the case, but it was all about where they were going to be on the day, and you never knew. I felt he had as chance of winning at the draw as anybody else, so it was going to be interesting to see what came out of that. I went to round the other side to have a little look. Andy Power was on the peg I'd had £128 off, peg 45. That's a really good peg. Andy's fantastic, won the UK champs this week, great angler, so I felt he had a chance. In the middle of the island, John Winkup, Jamie Hughes, I felt they had a chance. I felt the work that Hayfield staff had done. They cleaned all the islands out, cut all the trees back so you could cast comfortably. Still a tricky cast, not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but made it now more practical. I felt they were out and out feeder pegs. I thought that was what I'd have done there, without a doubt. I felt a few others had drawn out of it. Perry Stone, Simon Fry, didn't fancy where they were. Adam Richards didn't fancy where they were either, and that proved as the match unfolded, actually. Then going down the length, Simon Skelton, Dave Shires on in and around the point. Luke Bamford was end peg, but with a blocker next to him. And I thought if the fish were down there, they'd be difficult to beat. So you can see that, really, I didn't know where the winner was going to come from. Des was on peg 19, which has a short chuck to the island. I just felt that had a chance as well, but only if the carp were going to be there. So on the whistle, I stood at the top of the lake and I watched everybody start. It was astonishing for me, if I'm being honest. It really opened my eyes, because I felt I would have started on the feeder on any island peg whatsoever. Des started on the feeder and Jamie Hughes started on the feeder, and the rest of the match started on a short pole. Now that really surprised me. I do know that starting short is a great tactic, but I'm going to admit I wouldn't have done it. There's no way I would have done it. I would have cast to the island, I'd have made the island my own, and I'd have caught some fish. Now that's exactly what happened for Jamie Hughes. Andy Power had a nice start, 3 or 4 carp, couple of skimmers. Maybe I was thinking I was wrong, but Jamie Hughes was catching really well on the island. The only trouble is, it's a good 50 metres to the island, and they take some winding back to those fish on the method, and they're not massive. So you have to wind back fish that are probably in the 3 to 8 pound bracket, more closer to 3 usually than they are to 8. So you have to work away. You might get an odd Carasio, a pound, 2 pounds. So it's hard work. You've got to be really good at it. Man, was he good at it. He was absolutely excellent. So he was doing a great job. I thought it's all over. I'm not going to lie to you. Simon Skelton had a stunning start on short pole. He had about £70 after an hour, they thought. And John Winkup was catching a few fish. But for me, I felt it was all over. An hour and a half in, Jamie Hughes was admitting to £90. Personally, I just thought his peg's going to get stronger. Simon Skelton's peg had faded a little bit. And I thought it was cut and dry. It's over. Shows what match fishing can do for you, though. John Winkup's next to Jamie Hughes. He's not cast the feeder out, which I felt was probably a mistake, because he's given it to Jamie Hughes, but all the time he's fishing his own match. Now, those of you that don't know John, you should know he is brilliant, right? It's not even he used to fish for Essex. He was brilliant at roach fishing. He's gone to commercials. He's brilliant at commercials. He's qualified for this before. I hope he won't mind me saying, last year I went and watched. He fished brilliantly for 3 hours, and then either side of him caught down the margins and he didn't. and he sat between first and second. And I felt for John because he was the best angler on that bank for 3 hours. He made it happen when nobody else did, and then he got battered by big fish down the edge late on, and he couldn't catch them. I felt for him. I thought, oh, that was harsh. But he was great about it. He was upbeat about it. I could tell he was a little bit disappointed, but the sort of character he is, just got on with the job. He was catching. Now, John was catching on short pole. I went and watched him. He's fishing pellets, 8mm pellets on a short pole, and he was catching some fish. And when I went and watched, the talk was he was catching Jamie up. Now, when you're fishing 5 metres, the fish you're catching are like 4 to 10 pound. And John had more at the upper bracket than he had the smaller. And when I watched him, he was catching them quick. When you hook fish short pole, especially if they're like 8 pound, they tend to wallow around a little bit and you can get them. And John was doing it really well. And you've got to remember, sometimes he'll go in and he'll go 3 fish in 3 chucks for 20 plus pound. Now for Jamie to catch that on the feeder, even in a brilliant spell, takes him time because he's got to wind back 50 metres and he's putting the fish in the net. So watching it felt like maybe John was catching Jamie up. Then towards the end of the match, John's fish went a bit scatty. Jamie dropped back on the pole, caught a few, went back on the feeder, caught a few. I was with Matt trying to help him at this point because Matt was having a tougher day. But just talking about the main focus of the match, I felt that it was Jamie. For me, from what they were all saying, Jamie Hughes had a big weight to start with and he kept catching. John had a tough last hour. It was Jamie Hughes. For me, if I'd have had to put my money, that was where it was right at the end of the match. Hadn't really watched intensely, and everybody was saying it was close, but I think if you'd have asked 9 out of 10 people, they'd have backed Jamie because he kept catching later on. When the scales went round, it told a very, very different story. John Winkup had 105 kilos. Now, I reckon that's about 230 pound in around that region. What an incredible weight. Short pole, start to finish. I knew as soon as he weighed in, Jamie didn't have it. I just could tell 230 pound on a feeder is phenomenal. For you to be able to wind 230 pound of fish in 5 hours at 50 metres is almost impossible in my opinion. It'd have to be absolutely black, and it wasn't that good. It was just good. And I thought, he's not got it. And it proved he had 93 kilos, which is a fantastic weight, especially when you catch most of it on the feeder. But it gave John Winkup the title. John is a great guy. He's not a full-time angler or anything like that. He goes fishing a lot, but he made the most of his peg on the day. A brilliant decision, a brilliant match. And never felt you could win it from there on a short pole. And he did. So brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Another few performances to highlight. Des won the far bank off 19 with 65 kilos. Just a beautiful feeder match, really nice. Carasio, Skimmers had a lovely day's fishing. He won that section over there. Simon Skelton put, I believe, 81 kilos around that region, which was a lot closer to Jamie than a lot of people thought, when you bear in mind that Jamie and Simon were the same distance apart as John and Jamie. You can just see there that in weight, you can see that Simon was there. So he had a great chance, 81 kilos. He finished third. I'm pleased for him. A consistent qualifier in those matches. Brilliant performance. That left the section winners. Rob Brennan on peg 11 just picked Matt to the section. Matt, really, I felt Matt fished a really good match. He had 54 kilos. He never really had a chance of, well, he never had a chance of winning. A few things early doors didn't quite go for him. Otherwise, it'd have been even closer between him and Rob. Rob won that section with 57 kilos, so it was tight. I know Matt will say that he thinks he could have won the section. Well, you can. It's one fish, so anything can happen there. So that's for the £1,000 prize. Andy Power had 59 kilos. He snuck the top section. I think, knowing Andy, probably a bit disappointed to be so close to the fish and not have a chance of winning, but I know that he'll be back again, no doubt. Fished a nice match. And that left Dave Shires to win the top section by the old default. Well, hey, Dave, can't beat a default, can you? £1,000, happy days. He fished a nice match as well. But looking at the weights, there was only a handful of pegs in the match that threw up less than, say, 20 kilos. I think a lot of people in the match had 40 kilos or more, so pushing £100. What a match. I think a lot of people felt they had a chance to win their section. Not so much at the top section on the near bank, on the far bank, where, like I said before, Perry and Simon were. I've never felt they had a chance of winning their section, but that's fishing. But a lot of other people felt with a default or whatever way they could have won their section. It was an absolutely stunning final, and if it's there again, which I'm sure it will be, I'll really be trying harder to get there because I've seen how great it was. That's it. Winnie's a champion. £70,000. £70,000 for fishing. Unbelievable. Better off. I know some people say it'd be nice to see it spread around. And yeah, it would. It would be nice to see it spread around. But £70,000, that's exciting. I mean, I hope that if they get money in the future, they cap it at that and push a little bit more money into second and third. I mean, for Jamie to miss out, you know, in the end, not too close, but was in the battle, it's a big drop from 70 to 5. I'm sure John would have been happy with 50 and 20. He'd have still been happy taking home £50,000, but £70,000, wow, that's a real headline figure. Hopefully it'll be noticed by external bodies on how great the UK match fishing is. So that's great. I'm going to go to the World Championships with the England team on the bank in Bulgaria over the next week or so. Absolutely, really looking forward to that. Our boys are class, the venue's class. Going to be a great fishing match. Can't wait for that. I'll give you a report probably while we're there, let you know what's happening at the end of it all. And that's it. Tight lines. See you in a few weeks.